Well, I thought a lot about that question while actually researching and writing Disney U, and one of the big differences is many people who've written about Disney didn't work at Disney. And it's not that their messages are less interesting, it's just that as the former head of training at Disney University at Disney Studios, as a team member who helped open the first international Tokyo Disneyland University, I've been there and I've worked in that environment. My mentor at Disney, Van France, was the founder of Disney University. By having a success story as an employee in the university, I was granted access, unparalleled access, to former Disney executives while writing this book, starting with Ron Miller, the former CEO of the company, Walt Disney's daughter Diane, interacting with her and seeing her and hearing her in her own voice talk about Walt and his passion about, quote-unquote, plussing the show, resonated with me. And I think that's the difference, is I was able to basically channel lessons from many, many Disney legends into a concise form in Disney U. You know, one of the hardest things about writing this book was precisely the interviews that I had with so many Disney legends. Many of these men and women haven't worked for the company for 5, 10, 15 years. Many are passionate about the organization. Many work directly with Walt. Some I spent a few hours with, some I spent many days with, both face-to-face and on the phone. But here's the essence of every interview. At the end of an interview, virtually every single interviewee would say, "Doug, thank you for writing about Van. Thank you for writing about the Disney University. Oh, and by the way, do the job right." You can only imagine the pressure I had after every interview. It was like somebody laying one more brick on my back, and I'd walk out thinking, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? Another reason I wrote Disney U is because the founder of the university, a man named Van France, is not well known outside of Disney employees, executives who used to work for the company or still work for the company. And his lessons are timeless. He was one of my mentors at the Disney University, and I decided that he had so many wonderful ideas to share, and so many of us used to talk about Van when he was alive. After his passing, my thought was it's about time that the rest of the world learned some of Van's valuable lessons. And so in Disney U, I include 13 lessons that I heard repeatedly, as did many Disney legends, from Walt Disney, from Van France, through a number of sources that can absolutely be applied in any organization, regardless of size. Something else that differentiates Disney U from many of the other books out there written about Disney is Disney U is not a how-to book. Many of these other books about Disney, in spite of the fact that they're good, are prescriptive. They talk about how-tos. It's like a recipe for how do you get the job done. And quite frankly, in my experience as an organizational development expert, as a consultant, is if you don't have the values that support the how-tos, then the how-tos are not going to be sustainable. So the Disney U and the 13 lessons that I include in the Disney U reveal amazing Disney values. I essentially pull back the curtain and invite the reader into the culture of Disney to see what that core is, what that foundation is upon which those recipes are applied. And by understanding the values, the individual reader can then decide by himself or herself which kinds of approaches to apply in their own organization. And the other thing that I was conscious of when writing this book, Disney U, was what I learned at Disneyland from Van France was you have to entertain and educate at the same time. In fact, there's a famous quote from Walt Disney that says, "Develop your sense of humor and eventually it will develop you." I lead into every chapter with a story that will pull in the reader, and then I debrief that story as though I'm giving a presentation, and multiple times in every lesson, every chapter, I tell a story that will engage the reader, engage you, and then back it up with some descriptions of how that affected the Disney organization positively or negatively, and then also question the reader to challenge himself or herself on how to apply that in their own work environment.